Welcome to the brutal Ice Age. Here, your life expectancy is 25. The weather is completely out of control. Your spit freezes before hitting the ground. There is no internet or Amazon Prime. There are definitely no heated blankets here. Just you and some very angry Neanderthals. And a giant mammoth wants to stomp you. Forget the myth about shivering in caves. Our ancestors were actually hardcore survivors. They turned the apocalypse into a game. Let's look at your modern, cozy home. You have walls, insulation, and smart thermostats. You change temperatures with one single click. But 30,000 years ago, everything was different. The cold on the steppe was murderous. It was minus 40 degrees every night. Exposed skin would die within 5 minutes. The freezing wind was literally hunting you. A modern human would die before sunrise. But prehistoric humans did not just survive. They actually managed to live in comfort. First, let's talk about their houses. Hollywood always shows people living in caves, but that is a completely wrong idea. Caves are wet, dark, and very dangerous. Plus, giant cave bears got there first. So our ancestors built their own apartments. There were no trees for thousands of miles. You cannot build a normal log cabin. So they used skeletons of their dinner. They built houses out of mammoth bones. This was pure prehistoric heavy metal architecture. A single hut needed many massive bones. They used up to 100 skulls. These heavy skulls were the house foundation. They buried them deep into the frozen dirt. Then they collected long, curved mammoth tusks. They locked them together at the top. This created a perfect, strong dome roof. Imagine a wall made of heavy skulls. The roof was made of giant tusks. It looked like a horror movie set. But inside this horror, it was warm. They stretched thick animal hides over bones. They used hundreds of reindeer skins together. They sewed them with very tight stitches. This created a completely windproof bunker. The cold wind could not get inside. The humans were just chilling inside. How do you heat a bone house? Remember, there is zero wood to burn. There were no forests on the tundra. The answer is terrifying, but very simple. They burned dried mammoth poop and fat. Mammoth dung burns incredibly slow and steady. It generates massive amounts of heat. They also cracked open massive animal bones. They extracted the rich, greasy bone marrow. They threw this marrow into the fire. It burned like high-grade modern coal. The house smelled like a smelly zoo. But at least your toes stayed warm. Inside, it was a cozy 70 degrees. Outside, the blizzard was destroying everything. Now let's look at Ice Age fashion. You cannot survive without good winter clothes. If you get wet from your sweat, you will die within one single hour. So they invented smart, multi-layered clothing. They did this before modern brands existed. They actually invented the world's first underwear. They tailored tight leather loincloths. They lined them with soft rabbit fur. The fur was facing inward, against skin. This protected sensitive zones from freezing. It was basically prehistoric Calvin Klein. Then came the heavy second insulation layer. They used thick, heavy bear or bison leather. It blocked the freezing Arctic wind completely. Finally, they added the most important part. They sewed wolf fur around their hoods. Sometimes they used rare wolverine fur instead. Why did they choose wolverine fur? It is the only fur on Earth, which does not freeze from human breath. Your breath contains a lot of moisture. Normal fur turns into heavy ice quickly, but wolverine fur stays dry and warm. They discovered this through thousands of trials. How did these people stay clean? Well, the honest answer is, they didn't. Washing with water means instant death. The water would freeze on your skin. It would lower your core body temperature. So they used dry ash from fires. They rubbed the ash onto their bodies. It absorbed all the grease and sweat. Then they scraped it off with flint. They were dusty, smelly, and covered in soot. But they were clean enough to survive. Winter did not stop the hunger. They still needed to find fresh meat. But hunting monsters in blizzards is stupid. You cannot run fast in deep snow. So they used the winter landscape. They were brilliant tactical hunters. They located a massive woolly mammoth herd. They did not attack them in the open. Instead, they frightened the biggest beast. They chased mammoths into deep snowdrifts. The giant beast got stuck easily. It could not move its massive legs. Sometimes they drove them onto frozen rivers. The heavy monster would break the ice. It became trapped in the freezing water. Then the humans just used spears. They stood safely on the riverbank. They didn't even need to be brave. They worked smarter, not harder. They had natural refrigerators too. They dug deep holes into permafrost. They connected these holes to their huts. They used short, narrow underground tunnels. This kept their meat frozen all winter. They had food during the worst storms. Now let's look inside the house. What did they do during dark nights? The sun set at 3 o'clock. The night lasted for 15 long hours. They did not sleep like we do. They had a unique two-phase sleep. They slept for 4 hours after sunset. Then they woke up at midnight. They stayed awake for 2 full hours. The whole tribe sat near the fire. They shared food, news, and secrets. This was the birth of human culture. Old people told ancient survival stories. They sang songs about great past hunts. They carved beautiful art from ivory bones. They made the famous prehistoric Venus figurines. They did this by the dim firelight. The brutal winter did not break them. It forced them to become closer together. It created language, art, and society. Eventually, the Great Ice Age ended. The climate warmed up very quickly. The giant mammoths slowly died out. The endless green forests returned. Humans forgot how to build bone houses. They simply did not need them anymore. We spent thousands of years developing science. We think we are so incredibly smart. But look at modern military survival programs. Look at Arctic rescue team designs. When they need an emergency Arctic shelter, they use the exact same ancient blueprints. They copy the ruins from Paleolithic times. We did not invent modern comfort. We just automated the old knowledge. Your ancestors were not primitive idiots. They were absolute winter madmen. They looked at the apocalypse and laughed. They made sofas out of skeletons. They wore rabbit fur underwear. They used giant poop for heating. Next time you touch your thermostat, because you feel a little chilly, remember the hardcore mammoth bone houses. You carry the DNA of elite survivors. Stop crying about the cold. Hit the like button right now. Subscribe to the Red Tie channel. Do it for your badass ancestors. See you in the next story.